Welcome to the Golf Fitness Bomb Squad podcast with Chris Finn, a production of P4S Golf. Welcome to the Golf Fitness Bomb Squad. I'm your host, Chris Finn, and today I want to talk about club fitting versus lessons versus fitness. Which one do you go after first, second, third? Do you do them all at the same time? Do you just say screw one of them or all of them? What if you're trying to get better at the game of golf? This is a question that we get all the time, and it's like, what order to go after things, right? And unfortunately, it's a confusing world for golfers in that depending where you go and who you talk to, you're going to get lots of different answers, right? So if you talk to a golf pro, a lot of times golf pros will say you should take a lesson. You talk to a fitness guy, fitness person's typically going to tell you should do fitness, work on your body, because it's the only club, I'm using air quotes here, it's the only club you use on every single swing, right? And then the club fitter will say, well, it doesn't matter, if you should make sure clubs fit you, right? But then the golfer will, in rebuttal to all of those, say, I'm not good enough to get a club fitting. I'm not good enough to get my work on my body, or my body's fine, it's good enough. Or lessons, say, I'm not good enough for lessons, right? I'm not good enough for lessons and equipment are pretty common. I don't get it. The whole reason you go to get fit for clubs or take a lesson is to get better. So if you aren't good, you should do both of those. So, but let's talk about how to identify which one of those may be of more value to you at this moment, and then how to evaluate as your game evolves. When do you look at doing all of these things? So let's start with fitting. The technology today, and the number of people that I know that have like equipment from like 10 years ago, like it's wild how much, particularly like the drivers, how much more distance can just be received by getting upgrading 5 years on a driver or something along those natures. Like the sweet spot, the forgiveness, the sweet spot getting bigger, it makes the game easier. So if your excuse is I'm not good enough, well, then go get clubs that are easier to hit. Wouldn't that make sense? If you're not good, get stuff that's easier, that helps you more. Like go get fit, right? Now, in terms of fitting, definitely a couple considerations to think about where you go get fit and who does the fitting for you. You definitely want to be aware of what type of technology they're using and how accurate spin rates are, particularly if you're going to do wedges. I'm a big fan if I'm doing wedges going outside and, with a launch monitor. Ideal scenario for me is I want to see it fly in the air and I want to have a launch monitor. So I want to be hitting, like out onto a range or out to greens, particularly short game. I want to be pitching and chipping onto greens, excuse me, with launch monitors so I can see what the spin ratings are and those sorts of things are, so that I can actually measure the differences, right? And not just go on feel. When you do a fitting, it shouldn't just be feel. That may be an element for you, but you should be looking at, obviously like the objective results, and whether that's TrackMan or Flight Scope. There's lots of different ones out there that are good. It's tough sometimes to do it just in a simulator. You definitely want to be aware of, if they have a crappy launch monitor system, like just be aware that, hey, maybe that data is not the most accurate. But I think one of the easiest ways to kind of validate it for yourself is when you walk in, you have your old stuff, your old clubs, like hit your old club. And if your 7-iron typically goes 160 yards, let's say 150 yards, or if you're, a better player, maybe you're hitting your 7-iron 185, right? And then you go and you hit your 7-iron there and it's like 20 yards off. Well, that's kind of, you should be scratching your head. So just be aware of the technology that you're using. It, if used correctly, can be super, super helpful. If using the wrong, it can give you a total wrong thing where you leave thinking you were striping it in the simulator, and then you go off to the real world and it's like, I don't really notice the difference, right? So ask the settings, what's the elevation? I think this is the big thing on simulators. You can set the elevation. You can set wind behind, you can set roll. So you can do super firm so it lands and rolls 50 yards every single time. So I think definitely pay attention to carry distance, to total distance. Bring some of your old clubs to kind of, in a way, benchmark it, and so that you're comparing, what do you have currently and what are you moving to? And I think when you are smart about it, whether you're doing it indoors on a simulator or outdoors with technology, The one thing I would not do is just go out like hit balls without technology. I think that's a stupid way I think that is the stupidest way to get fit for clubs, just to go hit balls and say, oh, look, it looks different, feels different. Please don't do that. Use technology and feedback. Don't waste your time and your money. So either on a simulator and just benchmark it with your relative to your current clubs, just to make sure that you're comparing apples to apples. Or I love hitting out onto a range so I can see the flight while also having the launch monitor. So when should you do club fitting? I think if you're only going to pick one thing and your swing is like, let's say you're a mid handicap swing's okay, you have no interest in fitness whatsoever, like club fitting is an easy way to go make sure you got the latest stuff. I think if you have stuff from at least within the last couple of years, fitting probably isn't the bit, unless there's been a big change, fitting is probably not the top priority. Now, if you're looking to take a more, I think, comprehensive approach, I think always starting with going to see a golf professional is not a bad idea. Assuming that the professional you go see does an assessment on you, right? And they see, hey, how's your body move? Very simply, we give all the pros that we work with, look at your 4 rotary centers, right? And this is something you can do since you're listening. The link to the home assessment we'll put in the show notes here. Go do it. It takes less than 5 minutes. And you'll know immediately, can you rotate in your shoulders, your hips, your spine, and your neck? If you can't do any of that, or let's say if you fail any of those, then you're probably going to be limited in what you can do in a lesson. So what we find a lot of times is we go, someone will go to a lesson, a pro does that. They say, hey, oh, your hips suck and your shoulders don't move. All right, cool. Let's work on short game stuff here. So we'll work on getting you better at this element of your game, which doesn't require as much hip and shoulder rotation. Let's go get your body fixed so that you can actually rotate in those areas. And then we'll start working much more so in the full swing and, progressing to the different positions that we want you to get to. Maybe we just work on takeaway initially because you're dumping the club way behind your ass and we want to just get a little better initial rotation and better takeaway, whatever it may be. There's going to be things that a golf pro can work with you on while you're getting your body better. And you're getting your mobility shouldn't take you more than 4 to 6 weeks, depending how bad it is, assuming you do what you're asked to do. So I think a lesson is always a good play. You're never going to go wrong starting with a lesson, and you're never going to go wrong starting with fitness. I think if you start with equipment, unless you're just totally dead set on not doing lessons or fitness, then sure, go ahead and do the fitting. But I think ideally, what my recommendation would be is go get with a golf pro, get an idea of what you need to work on. At the same time, for free, you can take the assessment and figure out if your body can or can't move, right? And that's going to inform you and the instructor of, hey, can we get to the positions that we want to get to, and am I going to maximize the efficiency and the return on these on these lessons, basically. Now, working on your body. Let's go to this one, to the third one. Never a bad time to work on your body. And if you're thinking of working on your body, I would delay the club fitting. Okay. And the reason being is if you're doing the right stuff, like what we see at P1st Golf, we see at least 10 yards in the first 10 weeks. So we see 2 to 3 miles an hour of club head speed change. We're going to see better rotational mobility, which a lot of times changes attack angles, launch angles a little bit, just because you're getting more rotary. And so it's going to be much more consistent. So you're going to have the same swing more frequently, which makes the club fitting that much easier to be accurate and that much more beneficial. Plus, it would suck if you got new clubs, you go work on your body, and 8 weeks later, you're swinging 5 miles an hour faster and you need new clubs because your shafts don't work anymore. They're too soft or whatever it may be, right? So if you're thinking of doing fitness, I would my personal recommendation would be get with a golf professional, see where you can improve the performance aspects of the game. At the same time, look at the very least, do the home assessment. It's free. Understand if your body can or cannot rotate. And then from there, get your body rotating. We have our on-demand platform. It's like $1, right? So we can make sure we'll also put the link to that in there too. And that can at least get you rolling. But then if you're working with the fitness person and the professional, they obviously hopefully are interfacing and talking. And once you get past that first, 2-3 months of fitness, then that's when you go look and get the driver fitting or the irons. Probably driver would be definitely the one to wait on the longest, probably 2 to 3 months. Irons probably are not, unless you're drastic, like very, very slow. Irons will probably won't change a ton. But it's certainly, that would be the order I'd like. I think Golf Pro, then in very quickly, kind of at the same time in parallel, there's free things you can do for your body I just gave you all of them here. But ideally working with an actual fitness person who can then talk to the golf professional, build your fitness program around what you're trying to accomplish in lessons. So then now you're getting double the return and getting better twice as fast. And you're probably looking at your club fitting, 8 weeks, into that, maybe 12 weeks into that, so that you're not having to get a club fit from that perspective. But if you're say screw lessons, screw fitness, I just want to, then okay, go get fit, and that'll optimize at least what you got right then and there. But if you are looking to put time and effort in the game, that's kind of the ideal. Then there's obviously, maybe you're super fit, you kind of have a good workout regimen, you're younger, maybe fitness isn't as high on the list, right? Well, then you definitely, I think, depending on the level you're at, definitely looking at golf instruction. And then depending what you guys are working on there, if you're doing a massive swing change, I wouldn't go get a club fitting, because how you're going to perform, how your swing is going to perform with a club that you get fitted before you do a swing change versus after is going to change, right? Your lofts may change, number of kick points, or where the kick points, mid versus low, how stiff the tip is. All of those sorts of things may potentially change as you go through the swing change. So I think there's a time and a place for all of them, and depending where you're at, you may, for you, for one person listening, it may be, hey, I need to get fit right now. For another person, it may be, dude, I have a great swing. I played in college. Like, I know my swing. I don't necessarily need lessons, but my body has gone to crap. Like, I need to get my body set. And then as that body improves, then there's obviously going to be a need for different clubs, right? There may be somebody who's just getting started out in the game, and you may say, hey, you know what? I'm going to go figure out how to actually swing a golf club. At the same time, probably get, at least clubs that are relatively make the game as easy as possible for me. Do those two things in conjuncture. And then as that starts getting moving, maybe you're already pretty fit. So maybe that's where you focus on. And then maybe fitness is something you add in later to level up. But hopefully that helps to give you an idea of kind of at what points to add in the different elements based on where you're at personally in your game. There's obviously different scenarios where it's different priorities and helpful, but massive false belief to say I suck too bad to go for club fitting. Makes no sense. Getting fit for clubs just makes it easier. So go do that. I suck too bad to get a lesson. Again, makes no sense. Lessons should help the game become easier. And then, from a fitness perspective, I will say the number one thing I hear that's funny is people say, I work out all the time, I don't need it. I say, well, then you start getting into, well, what do you do? Well, I do all the machines, or like, just because you go to the gym 3, 5, 7 days a week doesn't necessarily mean you're doing the right stuff. So that's where I would always challenge people. Hey, take the home assessment. If you pass everything, you're in the 90th percentile for your strength, power numbers, and you pass all the mobility, then 100%, just keep doing what you're doing. I've yet to meet that person. So, and I'm 12,000 plus in. So, a lot of the times people miss a couple, and a lot of times it's not missing a lot. It may just be, hey, you're really, really strong and powerful, but your lead hip mobility sucks. Shoulders are fine. Or maybe it's just your shoulders aren't that good. Or there's always going to be a little low hanging fruit that can really kind of, be a massive return on your time there. So, hopefully that helped everybody listen, give you some insight in terms of when and what you should be doing based on your situation. And appreciate you hanging out as always. And we'll look forward to catching you on the next episode.